Your host, Parker, Dan, and Angela slice and dice their way through the good.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
The bad.
You brought the devil!
That's the devil inside everyone.
And the ugly movies you love.
And you can't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it!
Hold your favorite films and franchises tight, because they aren't safe. In fact, it's already too late. It's time to dissect that film.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dissect That Film podcast, a podcast that dissects the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite films and film franchises. I am your host, Brett Parker. Joining me, as always, my wonderful co-hosts, Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming.
Hello.
Or Parker, DDS, and Seymour and Audrey.
That's
and
right.
Audrey II. Audrey II's here, too. Look at for anyone who is not watching on YouTube, Audrey II is here. Hanging out. Hopefully Dan and Angela are safe and they won't be eaten tonight.
Yeah, this one's still growing. We picked it up a little while ago. That's why it has the sign. It can't speak yet. So
I don't know.
it's
It
getting
starts
there.
speaking pretty early. So
Yeah,
maybe it's hiding something from you.
It may be.
Yeah.
She got it. So if anything bad goes wrong, I'm blaming her for it.
So if you didn't know what we were talking about today, we are talking about the 1986 comedy musical Little Shop of Horrors.
Now, the most menacing musical comedy ever to paint the silver screen green. Little Shop of Horrors. Where did you get such a weird flavor? Thrill to the romance.
Will you marry me?
Witness the drama.
You'll be a 10. You have a talent for causing things.
I've been saving all month for this. I think I need a root canal. I'm sure I need a long, slow root canal.
Feed me, cowboy! Feed me now! Savor the spectacle of the first plant in motion picture history ever to sing for its supper. Starring Rick Moranis, Ellen Green, Vincent Gardenia, with a special appearance by Steve Martin, James Belushi, John Candy,
Comfy?
and Bill Murray.
It's your professionalism that I respect.
Little Shop of Horrors.
And I'm to be honest, this is our first musical we've ever covered on the show. Dan has always been so excited every time we'd mention a musical. And usually it's Rocky Horror, but we're not talking
One
about
day.
Rocky Horror. One day.
It will happen.
It is, of course, week one of our coverage of. Wait, is this week one?
It is.
Okay. All right. Good. I'm going to
Let's
start
keep
that
going.
again.
No.
I'm going to start that again.
Fuck it, leave it in.
So this is week one of our month of 1986, as we are now venturing into Dan's birth year, and we are covering Angela's pick, which, of course, she's bringing us our first musical, which is very exciting. But we are not just going to talk about the 1986 classic. We are also going to talk about the 1960 classic, because not that I was part of the assignment, but I did watch the original 1960 version on my own accord. I just wanted to watch it and see how different it was so that we could talk about it a little bit.
We talked about that. I'm going to put it on our fucking wheel for Monster Zone. It's going to get its own fucking episode just to be spiteful.
With the 1961?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
No,
Let's do it.
Good.
So Angela, why don't we talk about why you picked this movie for 1986?
Mainly because it was a musical. I was going to get him to watch one at some point. And this is one of those movies that I tried to watch as a kid. Didn't get like the full. I think I may have watched like maybe a third of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot I'm like, I remember that. But then there's parts I'm like, don't remember that. And it was one of those that I wanted to revisit, but I was like, ooh, perfect timing.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
Dan, do you have a history with this movie?
When I was a kid, I would play video games, and there was a giant plant in Joe and Mac that was very similar to this
Yes,
plant.
it was.
And there
Oh
was
my god, Dan! If I could hug you, I would, because
Dude.
I never hear anyone ever talk about Joe and Mac. That is for one, I never beat that game.
It's fucking
I would
hard.
only play like the first 3 levels, and then I would die a lot, and then we move on to another game. Like that's how Super Nintendo always worked for me growing up.
Dude, do you know what's worse though? Apparently, I never played the Genesis version, but there was an NES version of Joe and Mac, and the plant in that, which it does not do this in the Super Nintendo version. If you get too close to the plant in the NES version, it's just instantly eats you and you die. Just boom, and you're done. And spit your bones out. It does not do it in the Super Nintendo version. I have beat Joe and Mac, but it's a great game. And I didn't even play the second one, Lost in the Tropics. But yeah, like nobody talks about you.
No one ever talks about Joe and Mac. We're talking about Joe and Mac right now.
There's a fucking third game.
What?
Yes.
When did that come out?
It was also on the Super Nintendo. All 3 of them came. I think they're by Data East.
I only know about the first one.
And another reference I got to make before I talk about this is there's a giant plant monster in the awesome NES game Monster Party, which also has it's a reference, of course, to this. And then that's it. And this is a musical, and that's it. That's all I have to say about the movie.
Did the piranha plants in the Mario games come out after this movie, or were they part of the original games?
They were in the original games, which I know predate this film.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, technically the original movie predates Super Mario, but the way that Audrey II looks in this movie, very much like a supersized piranha plant from the Mario games.
Well, admittedly, the piranha plants also looked a bit different in the original version, and they got that kind of like the iconic like look over at you after this movie.
Because they would just they would just go up and down in the pipe. Right.
Yep.
Man, I didn't expect us to be talking about Joe and Mac.
I might play
Super
Joe
Mario
and Mac
Brothers
again now that we talked about it.
What was the third thing that you mentioned?
Oh, Monster Party.
Monster Party. I've heard of that. Never played it though.
It's weird as fuck, dude. It's a great game. I beat it.
So have you ever seen this movie?
No. I've seen it. Okay. I have seen the ending to this film because I've watched it got brought up in oh my god. Cinemassacre when they do the Monster Madness.
Yeah.
Their Halloween thing, this got brought up.
Was that all you had, Dan?
Yeah. It's just a musical and then games.
Right. So for me, I have seen this movie. I saw it growing up. I still am not really a huge musical fan, but this was an exception. The music is just perfect. This and Sweeney Todd are like my 2 favorite musicals. The music is perfect. The just situation, it's you can consider it a musical horror movie based on the subject matter. It's just an interesting story that has a lot of history to it. So, did you guys watch the theatrical version or the director's cut? God, I'm so happy. So you guys watched the theatrical cut. I watched the director's cut because I bought the Blu-ray, which comes with both versions. So
nice.
I was like, I gotta check out the director's cut because I know the only thing I think different in the director's cut is the ending.
To my knowledge, yes, but I'm not.
So, the history of this movie is supposedly it's based on. Like people don't really know if it's based on a book, if that was like the idea from the original writers who were Roger Corman and Charles B. Griffith. They, according to Corman, that was just him and the other writer Griffith got together, and it took them like a day to come up with the script for the movie, and then they literally cast who they got. They rehearsed for 3 days and they filmed for 2. So literally the original Little Shop of Horrors was filmed in 2 days on pretty much reused sets. Like he didn't even have to build sets for the movie. He had directed the movie Bucket of Blood the year before.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much just reused those sets again, which is funny thing is Dick Miller is in this movie or in the original.
Okay.
Another funny thing is when I was watching the original, which came out in 1960, if I didn't mention that before, both Mr. and Mrs. Futterman from Gremlins are in the original Little Shop of Horrors, which
That's
which
funny.
was called The Little Shop of Horrors. The actress who played Mrs. Futterman was Jackie Joseph. She played Audrey in the original.
Oh, nice.
So I thought that was pretty funny. It was also Jack Nicholson's very first film role.
Yep.
He was in the movie for 5 minutes, pretty
Yep.
much. Probably not even 5 minutes. He plays the Bill Murray character, pretty much, that you would see in the 86 version, where he's the dude who enjoys pain. And when they were trying to distribute the movie later on, like years later, when I think it was around when this version came out, because this was gaining a lot of popularity between the music, the off-Broadway musical, and the 86 film. I think people were starting to figure out, oh, there's an original. Like there was something that came out before it. Wasn't a musical. It was just straight up. It was kind of like a horror movie in a way, the way that it was set up. It's kind of like a horror comedy. And they needed to get people to buy the movie. Like they wanted people to see it. So they put Jack Nicholson on the cover of the movie, even though he is not the main character. He's not even one of the main characters. He is literally a bit part. The only reason why was because Jack Nicholson, at the time that they were trying to push this movie out, was a huge actor. Like in the 80s, Jack Nicholson was huge.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it was like, how do we sell this movie? Put it in that Jack Nicholson's in it. Then people watch it and they're like, that's it?
Yep. No, not that this is the first time that's ever fucking happened.
So like I stated before, it literally, according to Corman, this movie the original took 2 days to film, and it cost $28,000 to make, which
frugal.
In 2019, they calculated at $240,000. So it didn't cost a whole lot. It was, I guess, pushed big in France, and that was about it. It really didn't gain the popularity, like I said, until the 86 film came out. But then the history goes that it became a musical. It was an off-Broadway musical that was written by two guys who would later go on to write music for Disney, Alan Menken and Howard Ashman. So these are the two guys that would come together and write music for like the most banging songs from Disney in the 80s, from like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Howard Ashman actually passed away, I think it was like 5 months before the release of Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, they remember that from that documentary.
He died of HIV. And yeah, so like this was I think they were transitioning from this to Disney at the time, because I think 86 was when Great Mouse Detective came out. And so I think right after this is when they stepped into Disney and kind of changed the course of that company. But it's wild because Howard Ashman actually wrote the screenplay for this version, the 86 version, as we get into it. Frank Oz was brought in to direct. Frank Oz, most famously known as the voice of Yoda and many other characters in Muppet, the Muppets and Star Wars, not just Yoda, but in other characters. But a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people who aren't film, enthusiasts, Frank Oz is a director, and there's a possibility that we could cover another Frank Oz movie when we do 1991 next month, because one of my selections that Patreon is going to choose from is another Frank Oz film. So
interesting. That
could be fun. The cast of this version is Rick Moranis, who I guess was their very first choice. They had no other selections, according to the producer. I think it's, where's the producers here? David Geffen, who is the, also the distributing company of this picture. Ellen Greene, who was the only cast member in the movie to actually come over from the off-Broadway musical. She actually originated Audrey from the musical. And,
really?
I guess there was a whole thing where they had like Barbara Streisand as a selection, but they were like, no, what better way than to have the OG Audrey just come on in, and she kills it. So Good on them. You have Vincent Gardenia, who plays Mr. Mushnick. I should pronounce it right. Steve Martin as Orin Shrivello, DDS.
Asshole.
Dickhead. We have Levi Stubbs as the voice of Audrey II. We have, I probably should have said Rick Moranis is Seymour Krelborn, our main character. We have Trishina Arnold, Michelle Weeks, and Trisha Campbell as Crystal, Renette, and Cheffin, or the three mysterious girls who act as a Greek chorus and often provide backup to the songs throughout the film.
Yep, there you go.
So, Jim Belushi is in this movie.
Yep.
I don't think I see him because the fact that they did two endings to this movie, Jim Belushi is only in the theatrical version.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a different guy because he's the guy on the roof, right? Who tries to sell them or tell him about like the fact of, hey, I stole some of Audrey II, and we're gonna have Audrey II. Okay. Well, in my version, it's a completely different guy.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's Paul Dooley. So the crazy thing is, we'll talk about the ending right now, is the fact that there was two endings. The original ending is technically the director's cut ending, which is the ending we didn't get to see, or
which is the better ending.
Theatrical, yes. The cut that people saw in theaters and Dan and Angelo saw was the reshot ending. So they had to go back because test audiences didn't like it. The studio didn't like the original ending. They thought it was too dark. They want to see these likable characters get offed. And Frank Oz had to go back in there and shoot a new ending to make it happier. And so, we get this weird thing where in the original, Paul Dooley is a character named Patrick Martin. He's like a marketer who pretty much is trying to persuade Seymour into helping him sell Audrey II's around the world. But when they reshot the ending, I feel like they couldn't get him back. So they got Jim Belushi to come in and do pretty much play the same character in that ending. So
why not?
Sure.
Well,
John,
we watched the other ending.
Yeah, we watched both.
I'm like, I want my own Audrey II. Can I?
Who doesn't? We'd still manage to find a way to kill it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about how ridiculous the original ending is, because it's like, I think it's hilarious, to be honest, where it's just like, so the Audrey IIs persuaded their owners to give them blood, and it's like, well, that just means they're weak and stupid.
Yep.
Which I guess that's kind of the gist of humanity. So, yep.
It doesn't take much.
We have John Candy as Wink Wilkinson. Whew. The DJ. And I'm going to save some of the other cast for when we get to them. Because, there's some good ones. Some good little cameos in this movie. So, this is, there's not a whole lot for me to talk about when it comes to like behind the scenes stuff, other than the fact that this is more based on the off-Broadway show than it is the original movie, even though it does follow the same kind of lines as the other one. I am going to compare some of the stuff that happens in the original to this version. For one, you see Seymour's mom in the original, and she's an alcoholic.
That's good.
She's one of those like ailing, like something is always wrong with her. So like Seymour gets her medicine, and so she's always taking her medicine. I'm doing air quotes, by the way, for everybody who's just listening. She's a interesting character.
She's just doing shots in the bedroom.
Oh no, she literally, there's one shot of Seymour bringing her like a bottle. It just looks like a bottle of liquor, and she just takes like half like the bottle, like takes a half of it, and she's like, "Woo, I'm feeling better already, Seymour."
Oh God. Yeah, we were planning on watching the original. I was wanting to. It just didn't happen this time.
If you want to watch the original, it is on Amazon Prime, but I don't recommend you watch that version because it is so grainy and just it's literally like they took the original VHS rip Watch it on Tubi. It actually a better quality version,
Oh,
which is
see, it's on Tubi.
interesting. It's on Tubi. It's on a bunch of the free with ads services, but
I
I
think
watch it on Tubi. 'cause
I
it
think the
looked good.
original I think the original Little Shop of Horrors is public domain, is it not? The 60 version?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay.
I didn't look too much into it. I just have the knowledge of what I watched.
No, of course, of course.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing because there's like characters that they meant that you see in the original that you only hear mentioned in the. I'm gonna call this the remake. It's just easier to say than like than the
Yeah.
'86 version. It's the remake, but you guys, for anybody who's a fan of this movie, don't take it to heart. Okay, it just makes it easier for me to get through this conversation.
Yes, don't take it to heart.
Yeah. So you got the shop that's different. You have characters that are prominent in one but not in the other, but you still hear their name to kind of be like, oh yeah, you can kind of connect the dots. Audrey II looks vastly different in this version than he does in the original. In the original, the Audrey II always looks like he does before he would like flop over and start talking. He just was always upright and his mouth would just open like this. I mean, listen, that movie was made for very little money in 2 days, so they probably didn't have a lot of time to do something totally crazy like they were able to do in this version.
Exactly.
I mean, Audrey II in this version and in the remake is so intricate. There are like they literally built different stages of the growth. Like it wasn't some sort of camera trick to make it look bigger or anything. No, they had it went from the small version all the way to the version you see at the end. And then when you get to that original version, the director's cut version, there was all the different Audrey IIs and the miniature work and all that stuff. So there was a lot of work that went into this movie. The budget for it was $25 million. It made $35 million at the box office, which I guess was deemed a success. I guess this movie did well. So I guess it was one of the highest grossing films of the year.
Really?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I didn't go too far into that. It was released December 19th, 1986. It ran at an hour and 34 minutes, but the director's cut is, I think, just like 5 or so minutes long because of the ending. But yeah, that's I mean, there was just a lot going on, a lot of songs. There was actually the way that there's actually more songs in the original ending than there are in the ending that everybody has originally saw.
Yeah, there was like that extra song there at the end, right?
Yeah. Well, it was the way that it all happens. So in the original, I guess we're going to work backwards here. So in the original ending, of course, Audrey survives. Or no, in the original
we could just
ending,
we could just get to the end. We don't need to talk about this right now if you don't want to.
We don't need to talk about the movie. No, we'll talk about it right now. We'll talk about the endings.
Okay,
I mean, I think that's one of those. I think it's one of those things that people already know about if you're a fan of this movie.
Okay.
Is the fact that at the end of the original version, the director's cut version, Audrey gets eaten, but she's pulled out, but she is mortally wounded, and she dies. And her last wish is to be fed to Audrey II. But again, she would sing the was it Somewhere That's Green again. She sings a different version of that song. In the theatrical version, as everyone saw, it is Audrey survives after being pulled out, and then that you get to hear a different version of Suddenly Seymour.
Yep.
And then it goes to
That's right. I forgot about that.
So that's kind of your difference there. You get a different song based on the situation. So we'll talk about the endings again when we get there. Let's see. I do want to shout out though the guy who was behind all of the amazing effects in this movie.
Oh
that
God,
was
they're wonderful.
Lyle Conway, who worked with Oz before on The Muppet Show. He did stuff for The Dark Crystal and The Great Muppet Caper.
There you go.
And he also had a lot of people on his team that did a lot of creature work for Labyrinth. So just a lot of like Jim Henson stuff, which is always considered one of the best like puppet work in the business. I definitely wanted to point him out because like the work that was put into the Audrey IIs, especially as they get bigger, and the amount of puppetry that is done, and like I watched the making of this movie, and like people are like they said at one point I think there's like 12 people at once working on the different motions because you have like the tentacles or the vines, and then you have the head and and like everything inside, and then and it just gets crazier and crazier as it goes. I just want a replica of the little tiny
That'd
Audrey
be
II,
cool.
the first one, and I just want it so it opens this little mouth.
But I got my Lego baby back there too.
No,
So cute. I definitely want to get one because Audrey II's.
I forgot she does have a Lego one back there. I forgot.
Well, it's a brick form. It's not Legos.
Lego.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's I mean, like I said, we're not going to go too like deep into the behind the scenes of this movie. We'll talk about stuff as we get along in the plot. You guys know how this show works.
Yes, dude. Come on.
And if you're new here because we're covering Little Shop of Horrors, I apologize because it's probably not going to be the greatest coverage of a movie you love, but we try our best to give you something worth listening to.
We're putting some try on that
I
sandwich.
swear he said worthless, and I was like, wait a minute.
We are worthless now. If you want to listen to a very musical version of of an episode covering this movie, please go check out our friends over at Doom Generation. They did an amazing episode where they know pretty much all the words to the songs and are able to sing along to a lot of them. That's not going to happen as much here. Angela might, belt out some stuff. I might belt out a little bit, but it's not going to be as good. So please go check out our friends over at Doom Generation and their episode on Little Shop of Horrors. It was fantastic.
I've literally been singing the theme song.
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes.
Little Shop.
And
It's stuck in my head. So good.
Audrey II's main song.
Oh.
I mean, it's been back and forth in my head since we watched it.
Oh, so good.
Actually,
I
since
literally
before
just
we watched
downloaded
it.
the album on Spotify because this is going to be part of my rotation. It's so good.
It's
And
definitely
I've always been a
something-
person who's not a huge fan of musicals, but this just hits different.
I love musicals.
This hits
Even if
different,
I've not seen them, there's a lot of songs that I know from musicals just from, I'm like, oh, I want to watch that, so I'm going to listen to the music first.
So I think the only person we're going to be asking about what they thought about the movie at the end is Dan, because I think me and Angela have already showed our hands, and I don't even care.
That's true. And then for non-podcast viewer or for non-viewers, you can't see my hands, and that's okay. I ain't showing you my fucking hands.
Oh, wait,
they're so
wrong way.
they're so dirty, so dirty. Wash those fucking hands.
I'm watching myself over here, and I always go in the same direction.
Yeah.
I forget.
All right, so are we ready to dissect that film? Why are we so off?
We'll figure it out.
Me,
I'm not worried about
listen,
it. She's worried about
me
it.
and him have been married for how long now?
Ever.
Long enough that we can usually do things in tandem. Talking is not one of them.
17 years in 11 days.
Yeah.
There you go. Wow, glad you know those numbers. So this movie opens up to some narration about the end of humanity. Things
It's
are going to
Star
get bad,
Wars.
guys. Yeah, pretty much. And then we get little shop of horrors, little shop of horrors. Yeah, so good.
In their blue mushroom dresses.
Yes, one of the ladies, I think it is Tisha Campbell, was the wife on the show My Wife and Kids. Have you ever seen that show? Have you ever heard that show? She was also on Martin, which was Martin Lawrence's sitcom he had in the 90s.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Because I used to watch that every day. I loved Martin.
And Tashina Arnold, one of the other girls, she looks like Regina King. I thought it was Regina King. I was like, nah, I had to look her up. It wasn't her. But they do great. They do great work. I don't know. My unicorn stickers fall off my chest.
Oh, she was
No!
on. Wait, they were both on Martin.
Were they? That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
So
No, keep going. Sorry, I'm
so
fangirling.
as the song is going on, we are now in Mushnik's flower shop.
It's a shithole.
Yeah, we meet Mr. Mushnik. We meet Seymour. He's very clumsy, and on the radio, you hear some weird talk about an eclipse
Of the heart.
No.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry. I'm
sun.
sorry. Different thing. I apologize.
Gosh, get it right.
And we then meet Audrey, and she comes into work. She's late. She's always late, even though she lives across the street.
Yep.
And she's got a shiner, which for anyone who doesn't know what that means, she has a black eye. And of course, Mr. Mushnik, he cares for her. He's like, what are you doing? Why are you with this guy? He just beats you up all the time.
What'd you do? Did you forget a sandwich? Did you leave the kitchen? What's going on?
She didn't push the motorcycle fast enough.
Hey, listen, it was the fucking 50s. Don't take
was.
I'm just
It
kidding.
was.
It was not. No, it's not what this is
It's
about.
not okay. It's not okay.
No, but I do appreciate this guy concern for her.
Yes,
which is good.
Just, I mean, and so does Seymour, of course, but for two reasons. He cares for her in that way, and also he's in love with her.
Yes.
So there's a lot of concern over her. And of course, she's always like, oh, but he's got money. He's got things going on in his life. Like,
he's a professional.
He's a what? He's like a professional of what?
Boxer?
Jesus Christ. But you can also see that she has she likes Seymour. Like, I feel like in that way too, but she's just so afraid of getting out of that relationship. And that's a kind of one of those things that kind of hits home even today, is the fact of like a lot of, and that, not just women, but like there are a lot of relationships like that where it's the fear of being in that abusive relationship but then not knowing either how to get out of it or what I'm going to do when I get out of it. So yeah, it's a shitty situation. And
yes,
I don't condone going to the lengths that Seymour does to eliminate the situation, but I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of a maybe I do. I don't know.
I will say this though. You know what? Something else you notice about her?
What's that?
I feel like he's prepared for the absolute worst.
She is wearing the meanest push-up bra every time you see her.
That is the thing.
She's almost showing them off.
That is the thing, but that's not what I was going to say. What you do notice about her is she has the most, or one of the most, annoying fucking voices.
Oh,
I swear
until she
to
sings.
Goodness. No, and even though when she sings, oh my gosh, sometimes
when she belts out some
her
line,
voice drops a whole octave.
She can sing really well.
Oh yeah,
but sometimes it just comes up. When it comes out, it just seems so fucking awkward, and I'm just like, oh my god.
It was so funny watching the making of and seeing her, because of course if you couldn't tell, the that's not her hair. That is a
no, imagine not
horrible wig in my opinion. But in hearing her actually talk, it's like nothing like. I mean, that voice. I agree, Dan. That voice cuts you right through the temples, man.
Listen, I'm gonna say the version we watched was on Archive. Thank goodness for archive.org, because I didn't feel like paying for this movie to rent it. And the quality was pretty good. I didn't think it was bad quality, but I honestly at times did not know what the fuck she was saying. I legit had no idea what the fuck she was going on about sometimes. I'm like, what?
Yeah, thank God for subtitles.
Yeah, that's definitely want subtitles, unless you understand whatever dialect she's speaking, but that was not me.
For anyone interested, if you want the physical version of this movie, like I said, I bought it on Blu-ray. It is $9 on Amazon right now. So,
well, guess what?
I would say jump on it.
What?
I'm going to Amazon right after this.
I'll sell something to make $9 back.
Oh no, dude.
Go ahead. Anyway, go ahead.
I love that you have Mr. Mushnik, and he's like, they have no business, but he's like making sure no one's standing in front of his shop. And he's like, I don't take much to urchins, and it's the three ladies. It's our chorus there, going out there and giving them shit. This is when we get the song Downtown, or Skid Row. which every time I hear Skid Row, I just think of the song Skid Row.
I think of the band.
I look and see it's not only me.
All I can think of is the one downtown song sung by what's her face?
Downtown.
No.
That one? No. Oh.
When I see this part of the where they're singing,
started singing.
I think of that damn Old Spice commercial. It's like a musical. They're singing like in this neck of the woods. I don't remember the fucking thing. As the dude gets his shirt ripped off, he's like, "You need some Old Spice," and like saying, I don't know what the fuck. I was like, that's what I thought of. I don't know, dude. Just about living in the fucking slums and shit.
I mean, it is. This song is very depressing.
This one, Petula Clark, Downtown. When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can
always go
downtown.
Downtown. It was in Short Circuit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it got used. I think it got used for another song that came out like last year. But
Yeah, sounds about
I don't know if it was a Bruno Mars song or if it was some other
That's
guy who
not
sounds like Bruno Mars.
surprising.
We don't know how to make our own
Because
music. Let's just steal somebody else's beat / song.
Listen, when I worked at Walgreens, there was so many songs. I'm like, well, they stole that. Oh, they stole that. Like, can you not come up with something?
Like, I understand things are going to sound similar, but when you like blatantly steal like part of the song and just put it in your song, like what the fuck does that do? Like, if you're not just doing a cover, that's different. But if you're just taking like a section, like a sample of a song and playing it in your fucking song.
What was it?
I don't know.
Something came up the other day, and I was like, wait a minute. That's not who sings that.
That's not Beethoven's Fifth. I don't know. I don't know.
So this song is very depressing. And, we then get the kind of the montage of the three of them kind of rotating the spots they're in the shop until Mushnick kind of calls. He's like, that's it. I'm closing down. That's it. We got nothing. And then that's when Audrey and Seymour are like, no, let's give it one more chance. And this is when Audrey is like, go get your weird plant, Seymour, and it'll change everything. Yeah.
Put it in the window. Maybe someone will come look at it, buy some shit. Yeah. Okay.
And he comes up with this interesting looking fly trap plant, but it doesn't look so good. But he puts it in the window and immediately it brings a customer. And that first customer
What's that weird plant in the window?
Hello there, sir. What is that weird plant in the window?
Now, that is one bit that I actually kind of found
so
mildly humorous. Where he's like, it's not just going to bring somebody in because there's a weird plant in the window. Hey, what's that weird plant in the window? And he's just this fucking... Sounds like, I don't know, sounds like one of those random side characters on a 60s television show when he walks in the door. It's fucking wonderful.
So that first customer is actor and director Christopher Guest, who also is the husband of Jamie Lee Curtis.
Very cool.
Very cool. So we then get the story about, so the guy comes in, he does the whole thing like, it's an interesting plant in the window. And then he's like, where did you get it? And so this one, Seymour goes into his telling of how he got the plant. That's when we get the Dadu song, which is him talking about how he went to a Chinese man. And
it wasn't fresh out of Mogwai or whatever. So he bought a plant.
Yeah. He goes and there's nothing interesting there, but then the eclipse happens, the total eclipse of the sun, and I just want to belt out total eclipse of the...
And he stares right at us like, don't do that. Yeah. That's gonna fuck your eyes up.
This whole movie is just a hallucination for just eternally from Seymour because his eyes were burnt out from this eclipse.
Listen, we got a comment that was total eclipse of the sun, and I was like, did he say that wrong? And I totally forgot that part. I was like, well, shit, now I get it.
Yeah, and the eclipse sent down this beam onto a plant, and then this plant just shows up out of nowhere, and he's like, well, that's cool, I'm gonna buy that. And he bought it for $1.95.
And it came in its own coffee tin.
Yes.
Maxwell House.
Handy.
And I love that after the story is told, we go back and that customer is like, oh, I'd like to buy, I think 2 dozen roses. And he's
It's
like,
$50 in roses.
$50 in roses. And he's like,
Can you break
do you have
100?
change for 100? And he's like,
Yeah.
no. And he's like, well, I guess I'm buying $100 worth of roses.
That's a lot of money back then.
It's a lot. They're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So this is when the store just gets flooded with customers. You know, business is booming at Mushnick's. And I go, and my observation of this shop is, where the fucking flowers? Where is anything in the shop? There's nothing in there.
No.
In the original, at least in the original, that was a flower shop. Like when they show people in the shop, because the majority of the movie takes place in the flower shop, there are flowers everywhere and like things that people are buying. Like Dick Miller's character is literally a guy who just buys carnations to eat them. He's a flower eater. He literally brings around a salt shaker and eats the flowers.
Huh.
But this
Gotta do
shop
something.
has nothing.
Well, Dick Miller would
empty.
starve there.
Oh, would be. I wish Dick Miller made an appearance. I wish we got some appearances from some of the OGs, but we unfortunately didn't. So Audrey is going back on a date with her abuser, which is no bueno.
No.
Audrey II is not looking so good. And I love how it was the whole thing where the business is booming so much that Mushin is like, I'm taking you guys out to dinner. And then Audrey's like, no, I got a date. I got to go. And then he sees that Audrey II is starting to look sick. And he's like, nah. You're not going anywhere. You're going to sit here and you're going to make sure that thing gets better. And so that's
Mushnick
when
just wants to motorboat her tits.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. In the original, he actually takes her, like, they go out to dinner to the point where he can't afford to buy the dinner, and the waitress is like, you better go get that money.
Yeah, no shit.
He literally brings over the money, and he doesn't, I think Audrey says something to the point of, like, he doesn't have any money, and she's like, well, you better go get that $9 that are back at the shop. I'm like, $9 for a meal in 1960.
Yeah.
Damn.
If only it were still like that.
Shit.
But yeah, so Seymour brings Audrey II down to the basement, and this is when we get Grow for Me. And you find out that Audrey II, in order to grow, needs blood.
Gallons of the stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, more than they can drink, and it'll never be enough.
I'm glad you got that.
Somebody's going to get that.
Ah, thank you.
You're
See,
welcome.
this is why we've been married so long.
He pretty much, in the song, talks about how he's given him everything. He's given him dirt, food, plant food, water, sunlight, the whole kit and caboodle when it comes to, like, getting a plant to grow. But it just won't grow until he cuts himself on a thorn.
Damn roses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Roses.
Damn thorn. And it looks like he actually cuts himself. Like, he's actually pushing blood out of his finger.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. And this is when you hear the...
Because that's what he's
sound.
doing when he sucks the blood.
Right. Yeah. It's so good. And yeah, this is when you get the whole thing where he's like teasing Audrey II and is like snapping at him. And then he's like, oh, fine, I'll just give you a few drops.
I said I think this is about the point where when you find this out, I was like, you know who could be Audrey's best friend once a month?
Oh no.
You just take the old pad out, like open up and just wring it out.
I mean, listen, as disgusting as that is, you're not wrong. Like, it could work.
What's the little
tampon?
Yeah, you can just dribble it in like a tea for it, and then like
no,
just drop the whole thing.
Are you just going to like your shed in the back? You got like a fucking bucket and every time, just like time to change.
Yes,
pretty much.
Boy. A little bit of
it wasn't my fault this time. Wasn't my fault, everybody.
It was me this time.
Yep.
I mean, to be honest, come on, everybody, it's true, right? It's a good solution.
Yeah,
but the thing is, it only happens 1 week out of the month, and this thing clearly
there's
needs to eat a lot.
there's many women in this town.
They have different rotations, man. Just
imagine being the guy responsible to calling up and just like, hey, could you just bring over your used tampons? We need it for our plant.
Well, they didn't have tampons back
I
then.
was gonna say, I don't think they had them that.
Bring out
this
the old
time.
wash rags.
Oh my God. Jesus.
I'm not sure what was.
When you get done with it, throw it in the wash. We'll need it for the dishes.
Oh man. So yeah, so Seymour
It
walks
it's a
away
poor
from
part
this.
of town, man. You got to utilize shit.
Yeah, you're not
That's
wrong. So Seymour leaves, and I love that we actually get to see Audrey II grow.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like a fade away and then he comes back and Audrey 2's bigger. It like you get to actually see the effects of it growing. So we're now at the radio station as Seymour brings Audrey II in because it's this unique situation. And this is when Audrey II's trying to get some ass, man.
Dude, yeah, you find out Audrey II likes some cake too.
Oh yeah. He is trying to get a good chomp out of that thing. I just like fucking Seymour just like wrestling Audrey II. Oh, it's so good. And yeah, this is when you meet John Candy's character Wink Wilkinson. Jesus Christ. And he does weird stuff on the radio. It's like, different like stories and sound effects and all that stuff. And he talks to Seymour about Audrey II, and I love that Mushnik is listening. He's like, "Tell him the address. Tell him the address." He's like, whatever. At least he was on the radio.
Yeah.
On the Vintage Video Podcast, we'll be reviewing every single wide release of the 1980s in chronological order. Over 250 episodes to enjoy and thousands more to come. John enters the store now to order another can of ether. I picture him outside like Homer with the gasohol.
One for you, one for me.
I also like to think about that the kids renew their vow not to talk about the murder
by murdering someone.
They're taking a blood oath with someone else's blood.
This stuff is 7 times more powerful than uranium. And they open up the vault that it's contained in, not wearing any kind of protective gear.
Yeah.
And it's wooden crates.
Wooden crates. It's like the guys in Chernobyl picking up the graphite rocks and going, because there's rocks.
Hugging the elephant foot. Just like, oh, this thing's smooth.
It's so warm.
He turns to dial the number from the classified ad without even thinking about the numbers. We know this because we can hear his thoughts, and he's talking about how AJ was right that ninjas are misdirecting him.
They're misdirecting.
I really wish that he'd turn to the phone and been like, 665. No, that's 2 Vintage Video. We're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to.
So this is when we get Audrey kind of going into her kind of fantasy worlds, and we get Somewhere That's Green, which is
plastic on all the furniture.
Yes, my wife laughed out loud when that part was. I was like, it's so true. Because those were the people that would become our grandparents and kept plastic on their furniture even when we were growing up.
And sprayed Pine Sol.
Everything.
I thought that was just a Southern thing.
No, that's everywhere.
Until I grew up, my grandparents had plastic on their couches. I was like, this is weird.
I don't think mine did, but I knew a lot of people whose grandparents had plastic on their furniture.
Listen, my granny had her one couch from I don't know what year. It was plaid. It was green and blue plaid. Until I was probably a teenager.
So yeah, we get to see her better homes and garden life. We get to see Seymour mowing clearly plastic grass with their dog.
With its acoustic lawnmower.
Yes. Oh man, what a cool little
That's
thing.
not for me. It's not for me. All credit goes to
I didn't get that at first.
Adam and Adam Blank, and then the fucking Mark McHugh from Purple Monkey Dishwasher. Also, remember the game. That's where acoustic lawnmower. That's where that came from.
That's funny. So yeah, we get this song with with her fantasy of what her life could be so much better. We got Tupperware parties, which that was a thing, people. That was a thing up until like the 90s. So
I think it's still a thing.
Probably not.
I'm pretty sure there's people out there that still. I've been to a Tupperware party. It's so boring. I think my mom still has her first Tupperware she bought. It's like a goldish yellow, and she has an olive green one. Yeah.
Good old Tupperware. I think my mom went to a few when I was growing up.
They're great.
Mom did.
Tupperware is awesome.
Yeah.
Tupperware lasts forever.
It really does. And it doesn't matter if you burn it, melt it, it still works.
Stain it. It doesn't matter.
It just
don't worry
regenerates back.
if you get like tomato sauce in there and it stains. Don't worry, the next food that's going to go in that bowl is not going to taste like tomato sauce. It's just going to look like there's tomato sauce.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Then we get the song "Some Fun Now," which is "Some Fun Now," which is pretty much just showing how Seymour is continuing to feed Audrey II, which is causing Audrey II to get bigger. Yeah, so this is when we're in the shop and Audrey II is huge.
Yeah.
And this is when Mr. Mushnick's like, he gets a phone call about like, hey, did that order to Mrs. Shiva come or get to her? And he's like, Seymour, you didn't bring Mrs. Shiva her flowers. And so
because he says he forgot.
Yes. And he's like, oh, he forgot. She's only our highest like funeral account, which is funny. You don't see her in this movie at all. She's just, you just hear her name. In the original, she always comes into the shop, and every time she comes into the shop, someone else in her family has died. That's kind of the whole running gag of it.
Okay.
She'd come in and be like, oh, my cousin's nephew's son, he passed away.
Okay, I'm pretty sure she's using calla lilies in this. Anytime I've ever seen calla lilies, it's been for a wedding, not a funeral.
That's the technicality.
But she's making a thing with white flowers. I'm pretty sure that
we're guys. We don't give a fuck.
It depends on who you talk to. I've been to so many funerals. I have seen so many flowers at funerals, and it makes you wonder what people were thinking when they were asking for flowers. Like, pretty sure you don't send roses to funerals, but and it's like 5 flowers, and that's it.
Yeah. You could tell that they kind of gave up when they were talking about their feelings for each other and stuff like that. So,
right.
She's pretty much like, here you go.
It was the whole thing where, they, he goes to the back. He's like, yells at Audrey about like what he needs. She's like, got it. And they got to work together until they sit down and talk to each other. And then he asks her out, and she's like, oh, sorry, not tonight. I got a date. And he's like, yeah. And that's when Mr. Mission's like, with him again? God, he sucks. You're so stupid. And then we find out who her date is. And that is slick, black-haired Steve Martin. Riding his motorcycle, doing his... I love the thing where he jumps off the motorcycle and just stops.
Stop perfectly standing up. Like, it's just, I'm good.
Yes.
And his song is Be a Dentist, which is pretty much talking about his life and how he is a very violent kid growing up. And then his mom pretty much told him, you can use that violence towards something productive. And so, I'm going to be a dentist.
He punches out his assistant.
Yeah, like
which is Miriam Margolyes, who was in... she was in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh no!
She's a huge English comedian. She's hilarious.
The timing on that bit's like pretty
so
good. He just walks in, he just fucking punches her square in the face. Like
this whole song is great. This whole sequence of him like just being a torturous dentist.
I hate it because the first dentist I went to literally tortured me as a dentist. So I was like watching this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely not something you want to deal with.
Hits her with a fucking door too. Jesus.
To the point where later on in the movie, she's like, I'm done for the day. Just leaves. Oh, that's when Bill Murray's character shows up. She's like, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty much I love this whole song. I love the puppet mouth that we get the camera shot out of. It's so gross, but it's so cool at the same time.
That's when Victor walks through. He's like, "This movie's weird."
Yeah,
I was like, "Yes, son. Yes, it is."
I just love it. It's like, oh man, was it to a kid in this one, or was it to Seymour later? Where, while he's singing the song, he hits himself with the gas, but he doesn't numb up the patient. He's like, you haven't numbed me up. He's like, it's not for you, it's for me.
Yeah, I think it's during that because
yeah.
And we get the Say say
Yeah,
now
'cause that's when
spit.
he squirts the guy in the mouth
Yep.
from
And
like
it's
6 feet away.
and you
I'm
can
like,
tell. I don't think they pull away from this because that water is pouring out of the side of this man's mouth.
he's trying
doing it.
so hard.
Oh, it's so good. So we then see Mr. Orin Stravello DDS show up to pick up Audrey, and he's awesomely terrible.
Dude, he
he's
fucking
awful.
appears out of
No.
the sky and just lands his bike, and it's just perfectly. Yeah,
He like snorts gas.
it's the laughing gas.
Yes, the laughing gas, which we see during the song where he keeps huffing it and laughing and huffing it and laughing. I love his laugh too.
That's
And
good stuff too.
he's got and the thing is like his gas, he's like snorting it like Coke. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, no, like
He has his
want
own
some?
portable container.
What was it? Nitrous oxide. You want to hit a nitrous oxide? He says to Seymour.
Yeah.
And this is when like he knows who Seymour is but can't guess his name, and Audrey steps in and is like, it's Seymour, and he's like, did I say you could talk? And you're like, God, this guy sucks.
Yep. You fucking
Like he is clearly a piece of garbage.
He is.
And of course Seymour is upset by this, about how awful he is to Audrey. So he goes in there, he's pissed off, and that's when Audrey II flops and then kind of rises up, and you hear, feed me. Feed me. Feed me. In the original, it's really weird. The voice that they got to do Audrey II, well, actually, in the original, it's not Audrey II, it's Audrey Jr.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't know, the voice actor or the guy they got to do the voice of Audrey Jr. in the original it was weird. But most of the time, because it just talks normal. Like I love Levi Stubbs' voice. It's just so perfect for this character. And of course, this is when, we get the feed me Seymour.
I love it.
It's so good. And it's what, he's pretty much saying, like, I got nothing left. I got nothing left. I got no blood left. And he's like, well, I guess you're going to have to go out and get something different. And then he's like, how about that dickhead who's fucking beating up the girl you like? And he's like, I can't do that. And he's like, and then he looks out the window and sees them come back from their date. And he's just a total dick. Cause he's like, he pulls up in front of her house I don't know. It was her apartment. And she's running down the street going, sorry, doctor, so sorry. Like just apologizing to him. And
because he calls her basically an idiot for falling off
he calls her a slut
the
too,
motorcycle.
When he like busts the door open. There's an outtake where he actually accidentally, when he pushes the door open, his hands go through the glass. Like he accidentally breaks the glass on the door when he like opens it. Yeah, and then it's pretty much you see like the reflection of him slapping her and stuff. It's and then you go back to Seymour and he's like, yep, I can do it.
Yeah,
let's do this thing.
Audrey II says you don't know anybody. Basically, you don't know anybody that you could.
86.
Yeah, pretty much 86.
Yep.
He's like, no.
Oh, and Audrey II's nickname is Tui, by the way.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that.
Like it. It's
so
cute.
I love it where it's just like, you could get that doctor. He's got more than enough. So good. So this is when we meet Bill Murray's character, Arthur Denton, who, as we stated before, is the Jack Nicholson character from the original. Different name, though. Jack Nicholson's character is named Wilberforce. But they're pretty much the same character. Bill Murray comes in, and he is he just loves pain. He wants a long, slow root canal.
What is that called? Masochist?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh. And he likes it so much. You get the whole thing where he, like, every time the dentist is, when he's in there doing his thing, he's moaning. Like, it's like a sexual thing. It's like,
Hey, he is getting off on this.
he's like,
Hardcore.
and Oren is not about it. He's like, get out of here. I don't like people enjoying the pain I give them.
He wants to inflict it, not
them
like it.
Oh man. Yeah, this is when you see the assistant. She's like, "Yeah, bye."
Yep.
And this is when Seymour is in the he's in the waiting room while this is all happening, so he's hearing all this. And Seymour goes in there with the intent to kill the doctor, the dentist, and every time I think of dentists and like them not being considered doctors, it just brings me back to Seinfeld, where Kramer calls because Jerry gets mad because his dentist converted to Judaism, and so he's just using a bunch of he's just saying a bunch of Jewish jokes, and Kramer thinks that he's just he hates dentists, so he just calls him an anti-dentite. It's just a
Okay.
just think of that every time. But yeah, he goes in there with a gun. And he's gonna shoot him, but until he puts on this fucking extra, like this special gas mask attached to like a backpack and all, and he turns it on, and unfortunately, it breaks, forcing too much laughing gas into him, pretty much killing him. So Seymour didn't even have to do it. So he brings him to the back of the shop, and Audrey II is like, "Oh no, you got to chop him up. He's too big." And I was like, "Wait a second. How does this make any sense?" When later it's just eating whole humans.
It's also bigger later, though.
That is true, but I feel like it was big enough at this point. But I understand.
Bringing the dentist down the stairs, he's
Dummy.
just like,
It's such a
thunk.
It's literally
And then he lets him go to look, and he's like, doo-doo-doo-doo.
It's so funny. It does not.
I'm
move
like,
at all
is
with
he
that body.
wearing a metal helmet or something? Because, yeah, it's great.
So good. So yeah, he has to bring him out back to chop him up into pieces, and Mr. Mushnick comes by and sees it happening. I love how you don't actually see anything; it's all shadow, which is really fun. And yeah, Audrey II gets fed and is really happy. I love that you get to see him throw the legs with the boots on them. The boots that were so prominent when you would see the dentist. So this is the next day. Audrey gets the news that the dentist has disappeared. And this is when we get suddenly Seymour. And yeah, after all that, Seymour finally gets his lady. I'm trying to remember how that song goes.
It's okay. All the songs you guys are remembering, I'm just remembering that fucking Levi Stubbs is the.
I just remember them
not
singing
the Four
to each
Seasons.
other.
4 Seasons? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 Seasons. And I just got that music in my head because I grew up listening to them. So.
Because he finally touches her. Is the man or whatever is.
Yeah.
Something like that. But he like touches her, and I'm like, okay, well, go to bed because that's where you're headed. They're right there.
Yeah, it's true. Very true.
Do the deed and get it over with.
This is when Mushnick confronts Seymour in his room. He's all head over heels because he finally has his lady. And yeah, Mushnick knows everything to the point, though, where he pretty much tells Seymour to turn himself in. And then he pretty much gets walked into Audrey II. Like he pretty much is like, well, I don't have to turn you in, but I'll just pay for you to get a ticket out of town and you just leave forever, like 30, 40 years. And I will take the plant. And he's like, the plant? And he's like, yeah, just tell me how to feed it. And pretty much is like, telling him the normal ways of feeding a plant. And then when he turns around, he sees Audrey II kind of in full motion there. And yummy! Gets a nice meal.
Because he's like, I wouldn't do that.
Whoop!
Like, whoa.
And is this the one where yeah, this is where they get the come on, it's supper time.
Yep.
And yep, Mushnick is slurped up. Mushnick doesn't die in the original. Mushnick actually finds out about the whole feeding bodies to Audrey II and kind of keeps it quiet because it's keeping his store in business. so he
Yep.
kind of he kind of stays out of it. He
Turns a
knows
blind
what's
eye to
going
it.
on. Yeah,
I
pretty
mean,
much.
that makes more sense than what he did.
I mean, Audrey kind of knows too, and I feel like everyone who knows about it is just like, it's fine.
Yeah, it'll
We're
be fine.
fine.
Because she wanted out of her relationship, and that was how she got out of it. She didn't have to do anything.
Right. Because in the original, Audrey wasn't as emotionally scarred and dealing with the trauma that she deals with in this one.
Yeah.
Her and Seymour kind of have a thing from the beginning, and then they start kind of going out later on in the movie. With this one, she is, psychologically and emotionally and physically abused by someone, and it's one of those things where, because during the Suddenly Seymour segment, is she finds out what Seymour did. Like, she finds out, or no, she doesn't find out what Seymour did. They pretty much talk about how, like, would it be so bad if he was gone? Like, you see what he does to you? Like, who cares? And that's when she kind of is like, you know what, Seymour, you're right.
And then you also find out like that she was a prostitute before.
I don't think she says she was a
Oh, you do?
prostitute.
No,
She
she
worked at a
talks.
club.
Well, yeah, but wasn't from what she was implying to me. She did not do very savory things at this club.
I can see.
Okay.
Maybe not a
See
prostitute,
that.
but she was
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know. Her services may have been used at said club, depending
Listen,
on what they may or may not have been.
I was never in a physical abusive relationship, but I was in an emotional abusive relationship. And to get out like she did, I would have been like, my hands, bye.
I don't know anything about this.
Who?
I mean, really.
So this whole thing was the fact that Seymour starts getting famous, and this is when you get the Sign It kind of montage where he's like meeting with different groups, and they're like, deals and all this stuff, and it's just getting too much for him, to the point where in the middle they're like shooting a commercial, or they're shooting a news segment, and Audrey II gets up and just flops on the ground, and it like throws everybody off, and he's like, what do you got to do? You got to feed it. He's like, well, I can't feed it right now. He's like, why not? He's like, I'm not fucking feeding the thing right now. I'm not doing this. And literally storms out.
I'll leave and you can feed it.
And so this is when Audrey comes out. She's like, oh, that was kind of rude what you just did there. But they said they'll come back tomorrow because they're going to come by with a big check. And he's like, a big check? He's like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get that money. We're going to get married. We're going to leave town. We're going to get married, and we're going to start a different life. And she's like, yay, I'm all for it. But Audrey II is not for this.
Yeah.
So Seymour can't escape Audrey II. He pretty much is telling him, listen, I don't know, is this plant, like, it has a male voice. Is it a male?
I don't know.
Does it matter?
No, I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I'm assuming it doesn't matter. It's just that
it's a plant.
It's a plant.
Do plants have sex? It's a weird conversation
some
to dive
do.
into, but all right.
I mean, they have both fertilization
organs.
Or pretty much.
So Seymour can't escape Audrey II. Audrey II wants more food, and he's like, "Well, I'm not giving you any more of my blood. I'm not killing anybody else. So you're just gonna get some meat down by the butcher shop. I'll just get you a nice bloody one." And Audrey II's like, "Fine, whatever." But you only realize that Audrey II does this because they have a plan, and that plan is to call Audrey up and have her come down to the flower shop. Pretty much, I love when Audrey II calls. I love the whole situation of using the vines to pick up the phone, put it up to its head,
grabs a coin,
grabs a coin out of the cash register. Like, absolutely knows how to do the whole steps. Open the cash register, start to finish.
And doing the dialing it on the old rotary phone. Love it.
Listen, there's teenagers nowadays that don't even know what a rotary phone is.
I have an old rotary phone hanging up in my on the other side of my setup here that we just left there for the kids to play with, and it's funny to be able to be like, "Hey, dial our phone number."
It's good practice, though.
It is.
Which is it's
But you also
great.
realize how long it takes to dial a fucking phone number on a
Yeah.
rotary phone. Ugh.
I didn't realize until I had neighbors that had a rotary phone, and my grandmother had a rotary phone in her kitchen until probably 10 years ago. I played with that thing night and day at her house. So I knew how to use a rotary phone. And you see kids now that are like, "What's that? What do I do?"
Yeah.
And it does take a long time.
So, yeah, Audrey II calls up Audrey, and I love when when Audrey II is like, "Hey, it's me," pretty much stating it's Audrey II, and she looks out her window and
She's like,
It's pretty funny.
"Seymour?
oh, it's so funny. Yeah. No, not Seymour. It's me.
It's me."
And so Audrey goes down to pretty much see this now talking plant that somehow she didn't know anything about. I mean, she knew about Audrey II, but not the fact of what Audrey II is now. And this is when okay, so I'm gonna talk about the original version in my telling of this, and then of course we've already talked about the endings, but as I'm going through this plot breakdown, it's gonna be the original ending that's on the director's cut. So Audrey gets grabbed by Audrey II and is put in its mouth. There was also the one where it's fucking like lifting up her dress and shit. I'm like, damn, Audrey II, you horny
Yeah.
little fucking plant.
That's all over everybody in this
Like,
movie, dude.
Golly. And Seymour gets back to the flower shop, and Audrey is in Audrey II's mouth. He pulls her out. It's a really cool instance where he's like literally holding up Audrey II's mouth as he's like one arm grabbing Audrey out of the mouth. And then, of course, they get to the back, and she's dying. Don't know how, but I mean, I guess there's a lot of bite force on that plant. It's like an
It's got
alligator,
teeth.
so it's like just fucking.
I assume, but she doesn't have any, like, there's no blood or anything.
There is blood
No,
on her dress. There is
Well,
blood
not
on
in
her
our
blood?
version.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
talking
on
the
your
original
version.
On my version,
Yeah.
there is she has blood on her dress, and of course,
Which would make it more believable.
I mean, it's got fucking teeth. What do you expect to happen?
I mean,
Right.
really.
and that's a big ass mouth. Like you'd think,
Yeah.
it probably
Yeah.
has a good bite, some good bite pressure on
Because
it.
when he comes in, it's pretty much just her legs. Like,
Right.
you don't see anything before that.
So Audrey dies. Like, but as she's dying, her wish to Seymour is that she wants him to become more famous. So, and the only way for that to happen is if Audrey II keeps eating and getting bigger. So she states, when I die, feed me to Audrey II so I can be a part of it.
No.
And so she dies, and he carries her in all tragic and places her in Audrey II's mouth. You get like everything is very slow too. Not slow motion, but slow, where like Audrey II slowly opens up its mouth. Seymour, gently puts her in the mouth, and then like as Audrey II slowly closes the mouth, she slips in and disappears. And then he immediately after this runs up to the top of the building because he's gonna jump off the building. He's gonna kill himself.
Audrey wants Seymour to see more.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
And as he is contemplating his life, a man comes up and he states he is Patrick Martin. He is a licensing and marketing executive for the World Botanical Enterprises, and he offers Seymour a proposal to sell Audrey II's worldwide, and he has one in his hand. And he states that when he was there before, he took a part of the original Audrey II in order to grow this. So Seymour wants nothing to do with this. He pretty much is like, yeah, fuck yourself. He literally climbs down and he's like, plants are public domain, as Seymour is climbing down the ladder.
Listen.
And yeah, this is when he goes back into the shop and pretty much confronts Audrey II. He's like, "This was your plan the whole time. Your plan the whole time was to pretty much take over the world." And that's when we get the mean green mother from outer space, and it's so good. And as this is going on, we get to see the fact that Audrey II breaks free from its pot. It pretty much gets legs in a way. And it gets vines that grow little Audrey II's heads on them as they're singing the song. And
I love it.
I'm a mean green mother from outer space.
He's like, outer space?
Outer
What?
space.
I missed this? Like,
Have you ever met the
literally-
clowns? Have you ever met the clowns from outer space?
Mm-hmm.
The killers.
Literally.
The killer clowns from outer space.
It's all in the same continuity.
It comes out 2 years later, but yes, same planet.
He's like, see what I can do?
Yeah.
Audrey also knows about the critters as well. Like,
And
very intelligent plant.
And the mogwais and all that.
Yep.
Don't give him water after midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give it blood when it's on you.
You can water this one though. That's okay. You can water.
You can water
you can
this
water
one.
this
It
one.
won't.
Yeah.
It won't. Just don't let it in the
The
midst
song-
of anybody with blood.
This song goes on for a while.
It does.
But it's so good.
It
And
is so good.
yeah, and Audrey II grabs onto Seymour and consumes him, spitting out his glasses as a final farewell to Seymour. And after this happens is when we get to see the narrator comes back, and the narrator is Stanley Jones. I just wanted to mention him because he also narrates the beginning of the movie. And he talks about how consumerism takes over and people are buying the shit out of Audrey II's and succumbing to its demands for blood. And that's when you get to see just the chaos as this movie legit turns into a kaiju movie.
Yep.
Because you have literally my favorite shot of this entire original ending is the Audrey II on the fucking Brooklyn Bridge just swaying it back
that's
and
a cool
forth.
shot.
It's such a cool shot. And then the ones that are walking down, this scene goes on for a long time, but it is really cool. Like the Audrey II's just busting out of the buildings, and
one comes out of the river, like the military's like shooting at him.
That's where it felt like an old 50s kaiju movie, where it's just like literally, or just not a kaiju movie, but a monster movie, where it's just like the old. I mean, this does take place in the 50s, so it does kind of make sense. And then the final shot is the Audrey II on top of the Statue of Liberty, and it's just laughing. And it says "the end" with a question mark and an exclamation point.
Yep.
All I can think of is "Feed Me Seymour" to Mr. O'Malley from Ozzy Osbourne. I'm literally singing it in my head right now.
Mr. Crowley.
Mr. Crowley.
Yeah.
To Ozzy Osbourne's.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's funny.
Damn it.
Yeah, it's over now.
All
You
I
ruined
can
yourself.
see,
You'll never not hear it.
No. I can't not hear it now.
I love it though. After Seymour gets eaten, and then you get to like how Audrey II takes over the world. It's literally an American flag, and then the three girls come up and they're talking about it's like, well, now that you saw what happened before, now you get to see what happens because of the actions of what happened before, and then that's when it kind of shows everything that happened. And it's such good work, and I think Frank Oz talks about it in it wasn't the making of. There was actually a commentary track that goes along with this original ending, where he was talking about how there was so much work put into this ending because there's so much puppetry and miniature work and all the stuff that was done, and then they just pretty much they just like no, it's too dark, it's too scary. People didn't want to see the protagonists, these people that they actually liked, die, and they didn't want to see the monster win. So of course we get the other ending, which is literally we get a similar ending where Seymour rescues Audrey from Audrey II, but she doesn't die. She's not like fatally wounded.
Yeah.
She literally like falls to the ground, and then she gets back up and they kind of leave. She does a different version of Suddenly Seymour. Then he goes back in, and we get the same thing where the building collapses on him, but he finds an exposed electrical cord, and stabs it into one of the vines of Audrey II. And I love Audrey. Doesn't Audrey II go like, oh shit, and then just
something like that and blows up? Yeah.
So yeah, those are your two different endings. I love this kaiju monster ending with just built like the fact that, yes, I understand, like, these are likable characters. I like Seymour. I like Audrey. And yes, it sucks when you see like the likable characters die, but it's it's just a unique ending that you don't see in a lot of movies. And to see like the fact is like, well, yep, this monster was going to win all along.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that awesome puppet work and miniature work and effects work just looked fantastic. So yeah, I would rather see this over the happier ending where they get their, I mean, I guess it's cool to have that option. It's like, how do I feel today when you watch this movie? It's like, do I feel like I want to be like sad at the end, or do I want to be happy? And I'm going to choose the sadder ending, but I understand why people would maybe like this happier ending more.
I can feel the like for the sad ending. I hate the happy ending because dude literally comes around the corner and is like, "Hey,
Let me interrupt you guys singing real quick.
yeah, let me show you my piece of
yeah.
paper that I, have in my pocket of my jacket." Like,
is this
I have a
the guy
pen
selling the thing? Was this Jim Belushi?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to take part of Audrey to make more. He has not yet.
Oh, so that's another difference then. So yeah, because when you meet him in my version,
he's literally in the
he already has the Audrey
alley.
II. Yeah, he's on the roof with him. Like he literally comes
no.
up as he's contemplating death. I guess they had to change it based on the fact that the only reason Seymour's up on the roof is because of the fact that Audrey's dead. So
yeah, makes
I
sense.
like the death version just because I'm a kaiju lover.
Yep.
Like he showed me this and I'm like watching as he's showing me this and I was like, I've never seen this before. So that I liked it.
This is the only one I had seen because I'd watched this movie before this. I just seen the clip. He's like, "Hey, there's what happens in the original ending," and I was like, "Oh shit!"
As
That's
much as
cool.
I love Audrey II, I wanted Audrey II to win. Like, you get to the point in some movies where you're like, yes.
Gotta root for the bad guy.
Literally. And he shows me this, and I'm like, fuck yeah.
There's just a bunch of them running around. It's great.
I need more.
Oh, well, that is it. That is Little Shop of Horrors from 1986. I want to say out here right now is our apologies for not singing more of the songs. I am terrible at remembering lyrics, especially I'd have to be listening to the song. Yeah. So, like I said, there are other episodes covering this movie that are very musical, so you can go do that. Go listen to other episodes on this movie. As I stated
Don't
earlier
sing in
the
front of
episode.
people.
Oh, I'll sing.
No,
But I need to
I
listen
know.
to a song about 1,000 times before I can actually get the lyrics down and be able to.
I need it like super
belt
loud.
it
I
out,
need it to be where I can't hear myself sing.
Yeah, I feel
And
like
then
that's a
we're
lot
good.
of people.
Yeah.
So
I was forced to sing a lot as a kid. He doesn't know this yet, but I was forced to sing a lot as a kid in Christmas plays.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Remember the fucking things.
So that's why I don't sing in front of people unless I can't hear myself, because I hate hearing myself. But yeah.
So me and Angela already showed our hand on this movie. We love it. It's a great musical.
How does
Great
it make
movie.
you feel?
But Dan, what did you think about this movie after watching it?
No. No shocker there. Did not give two shits for most of this movie.
I should have recorded him watching this or not watching.
Yes,
He was on his phone,
I was paying attention.
Whatever.
Yeah, I was paying attention. I knew shit that was going on.
You were watching videos on.
I wasn't watching videos. I was looking for content like in the comments section of
Listen,
videos.
I could hear The YouTube
because I turned
videos.
it on an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, yes, I was paying attention to the film regardless of what my wife thinks was happening.
I was sitting right beside you.
I know, and it just wasn't for me. I don't care for musicals. Like I said, like the actors were fine. Rick Moranis is fine. The lady I know was just doing her part. I could not stand Audrey's voice. The lady who played Audrey or whatever. I the best part of the movie for me was there was a few.
He's literally in his boxer.
I understand that, but there's a few there's a few parts I found entertaining, like laugh worthy, or chuckle worthy, and then the best part of it was Audrey II. Like the effects, I was in I just like watching it for how the puppet moves because it's so fucking good. Like it looks good, it moves great. The lips and lip syncing is phenomenal on it because you wouldn't think that for just being a puppet, but it's really fucking good. And no, that was my favorite part. Even Levi Stubbs does a great job as Audrey II. And yeah, I love the references to doo-wop and stuff like that. Again, I grew up listening to that kind of stuff. None of the songs really stuck with me. Some of them were pretty okay, but not really. Again, I'm not a musical guy. I was trying to figure out when this took place too, because I know it's allegedly is the 50s, but then I see vehicles in this. I was like, there's no fucking way this takes place in the 50s because the cop drives a 62 Impala and there's a 58 fucking Buick portholes, 4-door hardtop that would not be beat the shit out of in the 50s like that. But I digress. As a car owner, I know this shit. Or a car guy, I know this shit. But it is well made. It is a well-made movie. And if you like musicals or with a horror aesthetic to them or a horror theme, this is probably for you. But again, especially for the effects, I love the ending though. The 5 minutes of just effects and miniatures and shit getting blown up. It's great. The original ending is great.
Yeah, I forgot to mention some stuff about the original. So the original's ending is the Audrey II, when it starts getting bigger, it actually grows it looks like sunflowers, and each sunflower has the face of a person that it ate. And Seymour at the end of the movie, because he is wanted for murder, pretty much, because they find out that he has been feeding people to this plant, sacrifices himself by jumping into Audrey II and being consumed. And Audrey brings his mom down to the flower shop with Mushnick and the cops and all that. And you see a new sunflower open up and it's Seymour's face. And he's like, I'm sorry. And it was creepy as hell, man. It was the scariest part of the movie. I'm like,
I'm sorry.
I can see
Yeah,
that.
I would say the original ending for this movie. I'd not watched the original. I do want to see it, but the original ending for this movie was fucking sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, except for the whole dynamic with the altered endings really reminded me of the original Dawn of the Dead. Because in the original Dawn of the Dead, the 2 remaining living characters were supposed to kill themselves at the end of the movie because it was supposed to end very bleakly, but the studio would not allow Romero to do that, which affected the outcome of Day of the Dead, which is why they wouldn't give him money because of how he wanted to do it.
I wish they had let him, because not all movies need to be
Yep.
end on a positive note.
I can't remember, but the guy at the end was supposed to shoot himself because they was still in the upper floor of the mall in that little safe area, and he couldn't get out. And the lady that was pregnant was supposed to just stand up into the helicopter blade and cut her head off. Because and then after that happened, the blade of the helicopter was supposed to just sputter out. They just didn't have fuel. They had no fuel to go anywhere, so they were dead anyway.
Damn.
So that was the original ending. But they're like, no. Apparently, I don't know if it was ever finished. Allegedly, part of it was filmed. I don't think it's anywhere to watch. But
just because Night of the Living Dead was so,
it would have fit with Night of the Living Dead.
it was
But
such
Night of
an
the Living Dead is
iconic
such a
ending.
dark and dreary ending. And
I
to be
still
honest,
feel sad.
as much as you dislike the remake does kind of a similar thing where they show survivors making it out, but then when they get to the boat, they all get ambushed by zombies, and I don't think anyone survives in that movie. So it's to be honest, I really like the drastic difference in these endings.
Yeah.
And I like I stated before, it's one of those things where you can kind of like I said, I think the only difference between the two
Poor
versions are
Dobbs.
the ending. So
Yeah.
it's just, I guess, what kind of mood you're in. Do you want to, end on a happy note, see Seymour and Audrey live their life as she envisioned in her Better Homes and Gardens magazine, or do you want to see monster kaiju size Audrey II's destroying New York City and rocking the Brooklyn Bridge and doing some crazy shit? Like, I don't know. I like that.
Right, same.
Literally. You have most females that are like, I want to see the loving ending. I don't.
I'm
I
right
don't
there
even think
with
it's
you.
just females. I just think there are just people out there who just want that happier ending. And
But you mostly get that from my side of the spectrum. Like, you get those ladies that are like, yes, I do love the loving ending of certain movies. This one, no.
yeah.
I wanted death and destruction from both sides.
Well, I'll also state that I was wrong. It's 4 tops, not the 4 seasons, and that fucking matters.
Yes,
Sorry.
because they were two different.
Yes,
everybody's been yelling at you while listening to this.
I just need to make sure because I would do the same thing, baby. I need your lovin'.
What?
Gotta have your lovin'.
There was some
Summertime lovin'. No, I'm just kidding. It's different.
That is
Summertime lovin'.
Loving happens so fast.
Oh, fuck.
Dang it! You've got me laughing, and I really need to go pee.
We'll go pee then. So yeah, I know it's probably disappointing to listen to this episode and not hear us belting out the words to the songs or all that stuff. And that's just listen. It's our first go around with the musical. It's not what we usually do, but we were just happy to be able to talk about it. And there was a lot to talk about with this movie. And unfortunately, as I stated before, not good with lyrics. And I didn't want to fuck up the songs for you all. I don't want to disappoint the fans of this movie. So,
you motherfuckers were happy to talk about it. I like hanging out with you guys, and I love the effects. So
I'm just not drunk enough.
The effects were fantastic in this movie, and this is, as somebody who is not a big musical fan, this is one I could definitely go back and rewatch over and over again. Like, it's a good time. Like, it's got a great cast, it's got great songs, it's got great effects. It feels like a play, which is funny. Like, the sets just look very much like it should be on a stage, and it's fine by me. It works. So
stop looking at me like.
Now we are going to go over to social media, as we do every week, and read off what you all thought of this movie. And we had a lot of positive responses to this movie. Nothing too negative. So we're going to start over at Twitter/X with our first comment being from our friends over at Doom Generation Podcast, who said,
"Yeah,
but will it be as musical as ours? I want to hear you belt it out." And I said, and I just sent a gif of John Candy going, "No."
I had more confidence in myself, but I didn't have enough alcohol. Just saying.
Yeah, it just didn't come to fruition. We apologize. We hope it wasn't a super disappointing episode. We hope you still had a good time.
2 downloads. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Our next comment is from BP over at the Let's Talk Horror channel, who said, "It's only the greatest musical ever made. A fun watch, 100% committed performances. Audrey II is still some of the best practical effects / puppet thing or whatever it is. And of course, the songs sound great and are super catchy. It's a shame they didn't go with the better ending."
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, really.
Our next one is from David Palmer at Mr. Palmer, who says, "Adore this film. Love the music and all the cameos in it. Rick Moranis is excellent, but the real star is Audrey II. Feed me, Seymour." Yes. Again, for anyone who is listening, who's listening to the audio version of the episode, please go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/dissectthatfilm. And you don't have to listen or watch the whole episode, but at least watch enough so you can see Audrey II in the background hanging out with Dan and Angela.
Audrey II will get better.
It's glorious.
Just saying.
Our next comment is from the Emperor's New Podcast, or at podcast TENP, who says, "Oh man, if I had known sooner, I would have requested being considered as a guest. This is one of my favorite musicals. And there'd be a lot to talk about, like how the director's cut is one of the scariest things ever when you actually think about it." I mean, you're not wrong. That is a pretty terrifying way to end something. And our last one over on Twitter/X is from Super Nerd 525751, who says, "I'm not into musicals, but I love this movie." We have one comment over on Instagram from Spoils of Horror, a great podcast, who says, "Yes, such a great movie." See, so many positive responses to this movie, so I hope whoever listens to it isn't super disappointed.
And not listening to me. Don't listen to me at all.
Listen, I am one of those that is positive until doesn't need to be positive. Go watch it. Just watch it once. That's all you need.
And we got one comment over on Threads from Contrarian Prime, who says, "Was too young the first time I watched this." Or, sorry, let me start that over again. "Was too young the first time I watched it, so I didn't like it. Next time around, I loved it. Became a little obsessed with it for a while. Last time I rewatched it, though, there was something about the oh, God. Theatricality? Theatricality. Thank you. I can't fucking read of it. That didn't quite work for me all the way. I'll probably love it again next time I watch it." God, did I just sound like a complete fucking moron. I was looking at that word and my mouth could not form it. I'm like,
it took me you saying it a few times, and I was like, wait a minute.
Theatricality. I know how to read. My brain just shut off. No comments on Facebook, no comments anywhere else. But thank you to everyone who did leave a comment on all those social medias. We appreciate you very much. Remember, we do this every single week. So make sure to, or every time we record, I say every single week, but we record multiple times a week sometimes. So whenever you see us post about a movie, usually it's a now watching, recording tomorrow or whatever. Usually we do it the day before we record. I pretty much ask you, what do you think of this movie? Leave your comments. And and you guys have been really killing it here in season 2. So we appreciate your comments. We appreciate everything you guys do to be a part of the show. We want to hear more. Please, even if you don't like a movie, please let us know. We love listening and hearing or reading your comments, as I should say. So yeah, that's it over there. Next week, we are going back to the world of Disney animation, as we are joined by not our normal friend from Flicks and Friends podcast, but from our other friend over at Flicks and Friends podcast, as we are going to be joined by Paul, as he hangs out with us to talk about 1986's The Great Mouse Detective, the film that kind of brought Disney animation back to life. And I'm very excited to bring him onto the show. He has never been on the show. And it's going to be very exciting to have him on to talk about an animated film, because he is very passionate about it. And he was very excited when we asked him to be on for this movie. So he's probably going to bring a lot of knowledge. And I'm not even going to try to compete with that. I'm just going to let him go. It's going to be a good time. So
sweet.
I love Paul because he doesn't make me feel like I am the nerdy one when it comes to certain things.
You got to just not care about that.
Listen. Sometimes it's difficult. It's really fun to talk to him.
Yes, it is. And I'm very excited to have him on. So that will be, and that was my pick. So I'm very excited to revisit this movie, because I watch it at least once or twice a year. So it's going to be a good one. So thank you for everybody for listening. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the love you guys have been sharing all the love you've been showing for season 2 and everything that we've been doing here, getting back into the groove of things after being gone. But we're back. This is our second month back, and we couldn't be more excited to, bring you more movies and more discussions, and bringing back guests or having new guests come on. It's a great time. So you can find Dissect That Film on all the social medias, Twitter/X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok. I might be missing something, but we're just type in Dissect That Film on any of those social medias, and most likely you're going to find us. If you're listening to us right now, we're on podcast apps, and whatever app you're listening to us on, you should leave us a 5-star rating, because it really helps us out. It really spreads the awareness of the show. We want new people coming in to listen to the show, but we appreciate everybody who's been hanging with us for as long as you have. If you have any questions or requests that you would like to make, please email us at dissectthatfilm@gmail.com. I always forget to plug the email. Yeah, you guys can send us emails on suggestions or, hey, you want to send thanks, an appreciation email or whatever. Please, we appreciate anything. But we definitely appreciate those ratings, those reviews on the podcast apps. We are on YouTube too. So if you want to see us in our animated form here, seeing our faces and everything that we're doing, and Audrey too, especially in this episode, please go to youtube.com/dissectthatfilm. Subscribe. It's free. Like the video. Leave us a comment on what you thought of the episode, or just leave us a comment. We'd love to read them. And that's we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers this year. So just going over there and hitting the subscribe button, even if you don't watch, we appreciate the support in any way possible. And last thing, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/dissectthatfilm, where for $1, Angela's going to knock down her mic. So every time you give us $1, she will punch her microphone off of her stand. It's going to be a great time. No, for a single $1, it helps support us. It helps us pay for programs that we use for the show. And you get a little bit of extra stuff. We release episodes a few days early. We have some bloopers, behind the scenes stuff. It's a lot of fun. And we also have a $5 tier where you get a bonus show called The Monster Zone, which is hosted by Dan and Angela. That's a lot of fun. We're also going to be doing commentary tracks. We're also going to be doing watch alongs. There's a lot of stuff in the works for Patreon. So if you want to help us financially and, just support the show in a little extra way, patreon.com/dissectthatfilm. Really we would appreciate it. It's not necessary, but we would greatly appreciate it if you do. So I want to thank our patrons. We have Jason or Nerdtrovert. We have Robert Stewart, Rudy5453, Andrew Schoening, Eric Stein, the Baron's Hideout Podcast, Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming, Billy Joseph Jr., the Flicks and Friends Podcast, and Doom Generation. Thank you so much for being patrons and helping support the show. You guys are amazing. And everything will be down in the description of the video or in the show notes. You can also find all our personal links down there as well. That is it, everybody. We are very excited to talk about another Disney animated film next week as we talk about The Gray Mouse Detective. So thank you very much. But until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming. We are Dissect That Film, and this has been another episode of the Dissect That Film podcast. We'll see you all again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Feed me, Seymour.